Welcome back, folks. How you doing today, Walt?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. Football season. I see you repping
Yeah,
for your boys.
I got, yeah,
Are you glad that
yes.
Saquon got signed, even though it's for a year?
I'll take it, man. I was like, wait a minute, we just about at preseason.
Yeah,
I could start repping the football. You know what I mean?
I gotta.
Um,
I have to get one, man, because
yes,
the
you gotta get you
Dolphins.
a Dolphin
I have the
jersey,
Dolphins
bro.
jersey.
That come on. I
Cheap.
like the
Just so
T-shirt
cheap.
though. I like
Just
your
so cheap.
T-shirt.
That t-shirt appreciate.
There it is. There, Christmas is coming, bro. I like how you have brought it back. When we first started the show, we were just doing this, our moment where we just
Yeah,
chop it up, whatever's resonating with us, or whatever. And then we lost it for a while. For I don't even know why. It just went away. We just
yeah,
forgot about it. And then so
yeah,
I appreciate you bringing that back, man.
yeah. I
Mine
see. What do you want
today,
to share, man?
mine today. I've been thinking about, and I just dropped it on TikTok this morning when I was walking Charlie. I, I'm a New Yorker living out of New York now. Been out of New York, I don't know, about 7.5 years now. Went by so quickly.
Yeah,
And I still feel like it was just yesterday and whatnot. And
yeah,
um, I went through a love hate with New York, and now the days I miss it, and there's something that I really miss about it, and I'm just like, what is that, right? What is that I'm missing? Because it's not just the people. I get to see some of my people here and there, so it's not just the people, and it's not the place, so to speak. It's not because yes, of course, it's a big city. It has a lot of culture. It has a lot of food. Like I'm a foodie. It has all of that. The food, the culture, the arts, beautiful. Cities have that. But what is it about? And I think I nailed it. It's the energy, right? Because
yes,
it has this energy. You can say that because everybody's oh, it's the energy. But what about it? The energy is such that you can walk out of your building, most likely New York City, I'm talking about. You walk out of your home and into the New York City, you can get swept into anything.
yeah,
That you meet someone that is part of this and sweeps you in, so good or bad though. Be careful
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've chilled with actors. I'm in a random cigar bar in Queens, up the block from my crib, and I'm chilling with an actor. Like just chill. I'm like, what in the hell? You know what I mean? I'm on
yeah.
a train and actors, and I went to high school with a shorty that dated Derek Jeter. Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
What?
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? But that's what it is in New York, and it doesn't matter where you are in those five boroughs. You can get swept into something bigger than yourself,
All
right?
right, all right.
Bad,
Yeah.
but good or bad. It can be
So
bad too.
let me ask you on that. So the energy, that vibe that New York gives, it's just like one of a kind. And I finally watched the new Transformers, which
The Beast Wars one,
yeah,
okay,
I didn't originally didn't give it a chance, but then watching it, I was
it's
just like, man,
good.
it's
Yeah,
it's it's pretty great. I think it might be my favorite Transformer movie.
it there you
You know
go.
what
I
I'm
got
saying?
to see it again. I was seeing it casually because of that,
Yeah.
because I'm all these are all the same, and then something kept pulling me back. Damn, this is all right.
But there was a
Yeah.
part in there because the brothers were from New York.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a part in there where they were saying, like, hey, you're this, you're that, you're from Queens, this is your name. And it's that vibe that New Yorkers have. And there's
Mm-hmm.
always the saying, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And that's the vibe. New York prepares you for life. Because,
Yeah.
like your point, it gives you all those different experiences, good, bad, like indifferent.
Ugly.
It's
Yeah.
a whole world of things there that you can experience. So, man, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You
No
know,
doubt, man. What about you?
so for me, something I was really thinking about while also watching Transformers is just like
No doubt.
and looking at TikTok is our data. And I don't think people realize the cusp or the brink that we're on when it comes to our data being
Word.
out there.
Word.
I was watching this thing, I think I shared it with you on TikTok about how our data is going to potentially become so exposed because they're building Wi-Fi router hackers, little things that can hack your machine in less than 10 seconds. They can get all your data like that.
That's crazy.
So it's going to be careful. We're going to have to protect our data in so many different ways. And it made me think if you're doing something shady, if you're doing something that your family wouldn't be proud of, if you're doing something on the internet, that's going to be exposed. So people are going to see that part of you.
Yep.
So either you have to be prepared to live by that, and say, "Hey, this is me,"
Yep.
because the whole world is going to know here. Because there's going to be people. Because unfortunately, there are going to be people who want to use AI and all this technology
For
to
bad.
change the world and expand humanity and stuff like that. But then there's going to be other people who are going to use it to expand their reach
Word.
and help their family and help their goals. And some of their goals aren't good. It's survival of the fittest. So I just want to let you know, get prepared. And I'm sure people are gonna come with ways to protect your data, but be prepared and prepare yourself when it comes to your data and AI and
Yep.
the exposure that may potentially come with that. So yes, that's it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. You're right, because it's out there, good or bad, forever. Forever. And like we were just saying on another show, don't get too comfortable with encryption. Don't get too comfortable with, oh, I do OnlyFans and you have to pay to do that. Nope, because it could be somebody that's paying that's on the other side recording your shit and
Mm-hmm.
about to put it out there on blast.
Yep.
So, you know what I'm saying? Don't get comfortable with these little things that oh, this is encrypted and it's behind a paywall. That, brr.
All that's gonna be exposed, bro.
Yeah, that'll be exposed in a hot second. So you still have, right? How you do anything is how you do everything.
There you go, sir.
So that's a little one for you. All right,
All
man.
right.
Yeah, let's get into it. What we talking about today?
We're talking about coding from a payroll
Coding.
standpoint, codes,
Oof.
like how we set up codes, how we use those
What
codes,
kind of earn codes and
deduction
pay
codes, memo
codes?
codes,
Negative.
accumulator codes, all those
Got
different
it.
type of codes that impact payroll and
All the numbers. Yeah.
other entities connected to payroll, so finance, accounting,
Yep. Yep.
potentially HR. It can
Yep.
impact those too, depending on how you have
Absolutely.
certain memo codes set up and deduction
Absolutely.
codes set up. So yeah, we're gonna get into all of that, man. So
I like it.
first, you want to go through some of the examples. I know pay codes
Mm-hmm.
for the people who don't know the savvy payroll person or even HR people, and even some accounting people know
Holy Trinity. Yep.
what these codes are, right? So pay codes, that's your reg hours, that's your OT, your holiday, your bonus, your stipend, right? Though typically pay codes are considered earning codes, right? So those things
Yes.
that increase your wealth and
Your
increase
money.
your pay.
It goes to gross
Yes.
calculate. Yep.
Deduction codes, what are those, Brian?
Those are inclusive of two different buckets, actually. The deduction code could be your tax codes, right? Your federal, your state, your locals. But also deduction is your health and benefits. And deduction, think of the word, it's coming out of your pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's coming out of that gross calculation to hit your net. So those are deduction codes.
And then another part, some companies do use negative deductions
Hmm.
for payment, but
I
it's
feel
so it's
like you
not
have
taxed, right?
it's a nifty tool, but what's
Yeah.
dangerous is that it's not in the gross calculation. It hits directly to the net.
Yes.
So be careful. And so many different shows go through my head, like the true payroll crimes, the gross. We were just talking about it's about your
Yeah.
paycheck, folks. So for our payroll crew, we started another show called It's About Your Paycheck. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, we talk gross. It hits all these subjects, right? Because you can get shady there with the deduction, the negative
Mhm.
deductions of it. That's why I was saving it because I knew I was going to go down a rabbit hole. My bad.
No, you're good. I'm
All
sorry
right.
I brought it
Nah, you're
up.
good. You're good. Hey.
So memo codes, right? Those are things like that help. I want to make sure I say this right, and you
Yeah.
may say it better. But so when you think about the W-2, right? The memo codes, there's some memo codes that need to be set up. The certain boxes, if it's not set up properly, it could mess up reporting for the W-2, right? How
Yeah.
those codes are spit out. It could mess up how your total wages are by the end of the year if you don't set up that certain memo code correct, right?
Well,
Because
no. What do you mean by total wages though? Because that should be mapped already depending on the system you're using.
depending on the system, because like I know that there's codes that and this goes into the accumulator codes, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I'm crossing a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of those when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
that. So maybe the accumulator codes. are that to that point. If they're not set up correctly, the
Correct.
memo codes are more so the W-2 end of year stuff, but then accumulator codes are like the things that add up
Yes.
each individual box. Like so your earnings will have accumulators, your
Yes.
deductions will have accumulators,
Yes.
your taxes will have accumulators. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So those type of things, your earnings, all that stuff. So that is what I was trying to say.
I see memo code. No, yeah, and you're right. I see memo codes also as a custom, right? Let's
Yes.
say your system is not tracking it. A memo
Mhm.
code or a customization code,
True.
something like
True.
that, is a way to track something that your system may not be tracking, not trapping. Don't trap. That's another piece of good advice. Don't trap. Tracking the thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a good way for memo codes. It's just basically a custom if you need it. And then
Perfect.
accumulator codes, what I wanted to say about that was accumulator codes is a great item that really will show how sophisticated a system is.
Yeah.
Because if they're built in already, awesome. And most of them should be. Your basic ones should be built in already,
Uh,
meaning you don't have to code it. You don't have to build it. It's there for all the critical stuff, right? To
mhm.
that point, regular OT are, if your system is really cool and sophisticated, a lot of these things come in standardized. They're
Yeah.
already there, right? Because you have to have a regular, you have to have a OT, it has
Yeah.
to be calculated properly. Now, there are systems that you do have to build these things yourself. That's why it warrants calling out what these things are, because if you have that system, I really hope you don't anymore. But I've seen them. I've been a part of building these systems where it's, wait, here's regular. Yeah, they give you regular, but you have to build the accumulator code. What do you mean? There's codes in here that, well, you either add it up in a spreadsheet or the system is not going to, you got to build it. And it's what? So, anywho, that's why we intentionally call these things out, because it could be a separate thing. Or it could be that all of this stuff is standardized and it's all beautiful and there for you. But
Yeah.
that's not always the case, folks. So we're trying to empower you folks to be armed and dangerous to go in and wait, what's this? What's that? Where's these? What's that? So,
Yeah.
anywho.
All right. Great call out, man. So, what are some of the common thinking that we had in regards to setting up these codes? The number one thing that we have listed here, and you can rank these differently from your own.
Oh yeah, they're not ranked. This is
So
just a list. Yeah, they're not ranked.
yeah.
They're not in order.
So
Yep.
number one, we have accuracy,
Yep.
right? Setting up your appropriate codes, ensure that employees are paid properly from the pay code standpoint. Their regular hours OT should be distinguished correctly to make sure that everything is good by the end of the year. So that's every code. So your deduction codes,
Yeah.
if you have multiple codes in the systems for your medical deductions and there are a bunch and you select one from another plan, one from this plan, all that those different things, if they aren't set up properly, it can throw off the employee and the company, and your finance team is not going to like you too much when they
No.
do their audits and stuff.
And the thing with accuracy in these codes overall to keep in
Mhm.
mind is you either, and it's a balancing act, right? But you got to make the business decision for yourselves. Code proliferation. Did I say it right? Proliferation. You want to
Proliferation.
proliferation. Yeah. Challenge myself because I know I have trouble saying the word. But anyway, you either have a big code library or a small one.
Yeah.
Don't force it either way. If you need a big one, you need a big one. It is what it is. If
Mhm.
you're a big organization and you guys make a lot of different payments and you need to track those payments, please code them accordingly. If you're a small organization or a big organization that doesn't have a lot of varied transactions or vice versa, whatever, honestly, the size doesn't matter. It's just transaction types. If you have a lot of them, then you need a lot of them. If you don't have a lot of them, you don't need a lot of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, don't force it either way.
That's a great
Um,
point. That's a great point because you're right.
yeah.
Companies and payroll teams or whoever is in charge of setting that up can do too much.
Mhm. So
Okay.
what's the next one?
Compliance. And I see you added
Compliance.
a
Yep.
subsection to that too that falls under compliance as well. So
Yeah.
compliance. So what is your thoughts on that?
Sure. Sure. So it's not that an agency will tell you, hey, you must code it this way. Nope.
Uh-huh.
They just say we're going to need a report on this at some point.
Yeah.
Let me get a good example. Compliance. If you get anything from like the federal government, let's say you're part of a grants programs or funding program from the government, not for profit. And when I worked in some higher eds or non for profit, when I was at Columbia, I was a part of a non for profit. I think it was non for profit. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not for profit. And so funding money, grant money, you can use it. Here you go. But they have stipulations. They have, hey, on quarterly basis, I'm going to need to see where you spent that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute. Oh crap. If you rolled that
Great call
payment
out.
into regular,
That's a great call out.
if you rolled it into regular, how in the world are you going to report it now? Regular is
Great call out.
everybody,
Yeah.
right? So you need another, you need grant regular or fund fed government system regular. Be specific, be intentional about that code.
Yeah. But it is important because there's so many laws out there
Yes.
around deductions, around earnings, around the employee, and around what the
Yes.
employer should do.
Yes. Yes.
There's so many things that fall under this bucket of compliance. It might warrant us doing just a show on compliance for
Yeah.
the different levels of compliance that there is,
That's
because
a good one. Yep.
you really have to understand the importance of setting up your coding, because
Yep.
it could impact so much for the employee and the employer. Yes, please understand the importance of complying
Yeah,
when it
for
comes to
real.
that stuff.
Um,
So the next one, unless you
oh,
have another thought. You have
no, no,
another
no.
thought?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
it.
The next one is reporting. What are your thoughts on that one?
So reporting's a big one, right? Because it's reporting covers accounting, documentation, analysis,
Uh-huh.
tracking, the accumulator part of it, and then ultimately decision making, right?
Mm.
So it's a huge, right? So let's see if we could go through accurate accounting, right? Reporting, like we've been saying, because you have distinct codes, you're able to pull a report based on those
Yes.
codes. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Boom. So that's the reporting piece of it. The accurate accounting, that comes into how your accounting team now uses those codes to do their work, right?
Yes.
They may need more, they may need less.
Yes.
You work with their accounting, right? Holy Trinity of payroll, HR, payroll, accounting, documentation. One of the five pillars of payroll. We know documentation is huge. As a payroll professional, you need your documentation. Same example, government funding comes through. We need a report on what you did with that money. If you coded it, it's a easy report to pull. Okay.
Yes.
Analysis. These are for your leaders, right? What happens to the reporting you do? You provide it to someone and they do analysis on it and they ultimately make a business decision based on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then tracking. Again, reporting, documentation of things. Tracking also is good and leads to employee transparency, which we'll talk about next. Ultimately, just for your leaders to make decisions based on all of this information.
Yes. Yeah, bro. Great. I honestly, we could probably do a show just on that,
Yep.
just reporting and the different impacts of those things. Like, great points about that stuff. And at the end of the day, your finance team or your accounting team will appreciate
Yeah.
things being in order. It makes their
Yes.
lives a lot easier.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So the
Yes.
next thing here is auditing. So this kind of is a perfect segue from the reporting piece, because this is why your finance team, or you as a payroll provider or payroll processor, do your auditing for your processes, right? That's why if you're in benefits, you should do an audit. HR, you should do audit. Like, every aspect of the entity that impacts employee or employer should be auditing something
Yep.
to make sure that the data, the coding is set up properly. Go ahead.
No,
Mhm.
no, I'm just giving you thumbs up. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, anything to before we?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. It almost became a sub item of reporting
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, you know what? To your point, it's so important that it needs to be its own bullet. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
As a payroll professional, auditing is required. You should be keeping your processes honest, keeping your data honest, be a good data custodian. One of my
Yes.
colleagues just called me a good data janitor. I was like, you know what? I will take that. I
I'll
love
take
that.
that, right?
Yep, I'll
Yep.
take that. Auditing is super important. It is very closely related to reporting because clearly you're pulling a ton of reports when you do auditing, but there
Mhm.
are other audits as well. That it's not just data auditing. All that is important in HR, in the holy trinity of payroll, HR, payroll, finance.
All right. So the last topic before we get to these tips that we have down here, transparency. Something that Brian put me on to by Ray Dalio is principles. And Ray talks about radical transparency. To my point about this, it's like having accurate setup. So if you think of it from the mind of that book, when you have that radical transparency from a coding standpoint, it allows no wiggle room for doubt. So it will take constant communication between departments to be transparent, and think of it from the code standpoint of I need to make sure that I set this up properly and have clear, concise descriptions. So what do you have to add to that?
Transparency, yes, it's more of an employee experience. It's more of your customer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's getting your work, because you may know the code right now on the HR ops side for me and on your team, we know the company codes in our system by the company code, right? Not by the name of the location. We know
Yeah.
the 3-digit codes and we're like, oh, that's blah, 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 blah. And people are like, what?
Yep.
Wait, I don't know it by that. Oh, hold on.
Yep.
See, now transparency for us is communicating the location and description because now our customer knows what we're talking about. And they're not like, whoa, you're speaking your own vernacular.
Mm-hmm.
So transparency for me is really for your employee experience, for your customer experience, whether it be in the report or on their pay stub, on their pay slip, right? That's where they need to see it. And that's what made me say descriptions because it's not the code. It's not the what
Agree.
SG5 code that means
Mm-hmm.
something to us. It's what that description says. Hey, this is
Yep.
your uniform expense, your uniform bonus or whatever. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's not UBS. What's that mean? Boom. So the
Yeah.
description of it is the transparency that we need
Yep.
to for our employees, and it really is again more about the employee experience,
Yeah.
the transparency, right? It's like delivering the finished product because we work behind the scenes in these codes, but now wait, that code needs a description for your customer, and that's where the transparency comes in.
It'll help eliminate confusion, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
There'll be no room for misinterpretation. So MED, if an employee saw that and oh, instead of medical, they think, oh, that's my Medicare
Or
tab.
vice versa.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yep,
or vice versa. You know what I'm
yep,
saying? So if you don't have that spelled out with those descriptions, man, it can really throw stuff off.
yes, yeah,
Great point, man. Great point.
yep.
All right. So
And
what are some of the tips we have, man?
that's it. So some of the tips, the first one I love that you put is you can reclass codes if needed to help ensure accuracy for the company. Meaning, I might call Walt, oh man, Walt, I did a bonus thing, but that really was supposed to be a stipend. I'm so
Yes.
sorry. And not a problem because as long as there's no money impact, it's an
Mm-hmm. As
easier
long as that.
transaction to
Mm-hmm.
make,
Mm-hmm.
right? You still should know how to do it. If you've never
Yep.
done it, ask your system support first if you're doing it right. But usually it's a plus and a minus, right? So
Yes.
if I gave somebody $100 bonus and it was supposed to be $100 stipend,
Yep.
now the fixed transaction is minus 100 bonus plus 100 stipend.
Yep.
You're not just going to go throw and the stipend in there without a minus because now you're going to pay them
Again.
another $100.
Yeah.
Now they
Mm-hmm.
got $200. Now you got two transactions to fix.
Yeah.
So
And we may have an episode on reclassing
Oh gosh, all of
for
this
the
stuff can
for the
be deeper
payroll.
dive. Yeah,
Yeah, for the
for
payroll
sure.
professional, because if you've never done that, I've come across people who've been in payroll for a minute, but they've never had to do any reclassing. When
God
you think
bless
about
them.
reclassing, like to what Brian says, it's a part of the job, right? It's
Hmm.
a part of the payroll job. But I think there's been people who have been in positions where only leadership did it. They didn't have to
Oh,
do it
okay,
themselves
that makes
or
sense.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, once you have to do this, it's just think about it. You're taking one code and transforming it to the other code that it should be. You're adjusting the record so it shows properly for the employee. If I pay somebody under holiday and it should have been reg, I can do -8 holiday, +8 reg hours.
Yep.
And that should not create any money impact because those two numbers and rates cancel each other out, right?
Well,
Right. If the rate is the same, right? If
there
the
we
rate
go.
is the same.
Yes.
Okay. If the rate is the same,
If the
okay.
rate is the same. Yep,
If the
that's
rate is
right.
the same.
And that's why one of my somewhere in here is make sure the math is right.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
so if we can, let's segue to the next one.
Yep.
The next tip was be careful, right? Using an
Careful.
earning code to refund the deduction code or vice
Yeah.
versa could mess things up. And
Yeah.
I said how, but Walt just answered the how, right? That's how it would mess things up. If you should have done it with this, but you did it with that, then you got to fix it. Okay. And while I'll be honest, accountants
Oh,
helped me really understand how to fix these things when I had a great controller one day, once upon a time. And he was like, he taught me, he's really my first payroll job. I'm going to shout out to Andy Stewart. He not only, again, my first payroll job taught me so much that I know that I took with me for payroll. But anywho,
yeah. Yeah.
that's how I learned how to lay these things out
Mm-hmm.
because how you put it in, you have to capture how you put it in and then turning it around, whether it be negative or positive. You got to do the opposite of what you did to put
Yeah.
it in to get it out.
Yeah.
Code, math, saying all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right. You're like you have to be careful. To your point, for the call out you gave me earlier. So if I'm going to do an adjustment, it's important that I investigate the employee's record. That I actually go
Yes.
look at it and see, because
Yes.
maybe there was a rate increase that just happened, right? That just happened to pay after the last payroll was processed. There was a rate increase that was done, and I go to make this adjustment, and I'm trying to correct something, but their rate on the last payroll was $1 less per hour, and I'm trying
Ooh.
to adjust it.
Ooh,
So
good
this
one.
and
Because
this
of
is a
timing.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a
So
good one. Oh.
it's important to look at the initial transaction before you reverse it. That's why I feel like this reclass stuff, man. Like we could have a show just best practice for reclassing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think yes, we'll when we debrief about this show, we can
yeah,
definitely think about what that maybe it's just a part two and we dive
yeah,
deeper or
yeah.
additional parts to this and we can dive deeper because all of some of these subjects need a deeper dive.
Oh,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So yeah, and that's where we get so excited about this. We're like, oh my gosh, we can talk about so much more.
So much stuff.
Yeah, so much stuff.
All right,
Um,
and the last one, bro. Do you have anything to say before we get to the last one? Anything
no
else?
reclass. No, I was just taking the notes that we were just saying here. And that's it. Investigate employee record, capture the initial transaction, and be sure the math is right. I'm gonna type it again. I
Yeah,
wrote it here, but
yeah.
it is correct. All right, cool.
So this last one, I see 3 words that you put here
That's
for this
it.
last
We
part.
could talk about a bunch of stuff, but this is what
Yes,
it boils down to.
yes. So miscellaneous code use. So most systems have this generic code in their MISC,
Or people actually
miscellaneous,
literally build it
or they
in there.
create it,
Yeah.
right? So I worked at a place, Brian. I worked at a place
But hold
that
on. What's the tip first? You can
the
tell the
tip
story.
first.
What's the tip? What is that folks should take away from this? What are we talking about?
All right,
Miscellaneous code. What's the
miscellaneous
tip?
codes. Basically, is don't use them. That's that. If we had to give you a professional advice,
Absolutely.
don't use them.
That's
Right.
right. Now
So
we could talk about the mess. Yes.
so like I worked at places that did use them, and some of
Hmm.
you may work for places that
Use
currently use them.
hmm
Those miscellaneous codes, but what it could do. But so what the reason they use these miscellaneous buckets, and so they term them, is just so for all the stuff that fell through in accounting, is like, oh, we couldn't tie this out to this when we did our reconciliations. So we're just gonna throw everything to this miscellaneous bucket and say, okay, hey, we're good. Like those things that fall through the cracks. That's why some companies use that to this day, because they're just like, okay, hey, we couldn't tie everything else out, but everything that's important ties out. So it's other stuff. We just it is what it is. So that's why some companies still use that to this day.
In accounting, that's fine.
Yeah.
Not in
Mm-hmm.
payroll. You
Yeah.
cannot have
Mm-hmm.
an earning or deduction code or a memo code or any type of
Mm-hmm.
code that is miscellaneous. It is counterproductive. If you're coding something, you need a, an intention. Miscellaneous is no intention. It's
Yeah.
I don't know what this is because think about at the end of the year when you report on that. Hey, we paid $1 million
Yeah.
in miscellaneous bonuses. What's that? I don't know. It's miscellaneous.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Brian is saying is like the importance of what he just said is like the difference between that use from a payroll standpoint versus the accounting standpoint, which is the books, the general ledgers, the journal entries and stuff like that. That could be a difference.
I think they
I
call it
now
unallocated or something like
yes,
that.
yes,
Not
yes,
like
yes.
it's they don't know what
But
to do with it yet.
but what
Holding
but what
some
Brian
little
is so that this goes back to it, right? When you're trying to give someone a refund for a benefit deduction, right? Oh, this person they had a qualifying event, they were able to change the deductions and update it, and now there's less, but we were withholding it at the larger rate. So we have to adjust that. We don't want to use a miscellaneous code to give those wages back and be like, okay, what's that for?
mm-mm.
What's that for? That's a Brian's point. Like making sure that goes back to making sure that we have accuracy and we're in compliance and all this other stuff, and that the employee experience at the end of the day is good to go. What do you want to
Uh-huh.
add to that, Brian? Mm-hmm.
Yes, a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because now
On a can of worms.
open up a can of worms. So you said something about turning codes around, negative, positive, negative, right? You got a refund, a benefit refunds,
Yeah. Yes.
specifically benefit refunds. You again, you have to capture the initial transaction and turn that same transaction around with the codes. Why? Because if it's a pre-tax deduction and you pay it back, it now is a taxable earning that goes to the employee. And if the system is set up properly, it's going to do that automatically in the transaction. If it's not, you have to recalculate yourself. That's a
Yeah.
pain, right? That's going to be a pain. That is something that this is why we're saying this stuff. Like you have to be
Yeah.
mindful. You can't just use miscellaneous because you want to, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to give it back miscellaneous. No, because now their 941 is off.
Yeah.
Their W-2 is going to be off. Their benefit accruals are off. Hey, if the company matched something in that benefit and pays something to that benefit, now you didn't reverse it. The company overspent.
Yeah, bro.
Okay. You got these little transactions have like a web of impact. You
Exactly.
and that's where
Exactly.
payroll, that's where we come in, right? This is where we earn
Yes.
our weight in gold
Yes.
because
Yes.
we're the ones that have to understand how these little ripple effects will happen, how these web and the
Yeah.
descent in all different ways that you have to capture. That's
Yes. That's why it's important to do this auditing, right?
yes.
That's why it's so
Yes.
important to do auditing, because if you leave everything to chance, say you use a payroll provider that copies takes a snapshot of an original company that you have set up and copy and paste those deductions over to a new company, but it messes something in the code, is messed up, and it changes the description, or there's no descriptions that are taken over. This could throw everything off. That's why anything that happens that may impact the employee, the company, that you and payroll have control over. You want to audit all of those things to make sure that things are producing proper records. Because as we know, one of the famous things that we learned is garbage in, garbage out. If you get garbage data in and you let that garbage data stay in the system, you're going to produce garbage reports, and then you'll have to find yourself scrambling to clean it up, format, and you're just gonna be adding work to yourself. So do the work now, audit, validate your tables, validate your codes right now.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes. Yep. And it could be penalties involved when we're talking taxes stuff and
Yes, bro.
W-2s and benefits. There's penalties involved with this stuff if we don't do it the right way. So keep that in
So,
mind. It's
so,
gonna
so
cost your company money. What's up?
something we didn't even talk about from a coding standpoint is garnishments and the importance of
Garnishments.
garnishments. Because if you have a different code for a tax lien and you have a different code for child support and you have a
Absolutely.
different code for a general garnishment, but you're using all different type of codes. Oh, I'm just going to use this code, whatever. I'm
Nope.
just going to
It can't
assign
be
this
a
code.
general garnishment code. No,
You get what I'm
no.
saying? So like you want to make sure that you're using the proper code
Yep.
for the proper stuff because it could throw stuff off for real, man.
There's speaking of that, there can be coding within the earn code, meaning
Mm-hmm.
when some systems, sometimes when you set up bonus, you can hard code the what is it called? Supplemental wage tax into that. So meaning every time I use this code, it's going to tax at the supplemental wage tax rate and ignore their personal tax table.
Mm-hmm.
You can build that in some systems right into the code. So this is where the accuracy, the setup, the intention comes in, and the understanding of all your codes and what they're doing is important. To your point, well, a garnishment. You can't,
Yeah.
there's no one-stop shop for garnishment because you have a tax levy garnishment, there's child support garnishment, there's what is the other creditor, student
Yes.
loan.
Yes.
There's some of them impose it on themselves and the companies
Yeah.
allow it. Nonsense.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother thing. So there's a few different types of garnishments, and those need to be tracked properly
I think we have a
because
show on it too. So go
we
check it
do
out.
have a show on garnish. That's correct, and but it's worth talking about because
Yeah.
there's also the reason why you need the special coding with garnishment. And great catch, thank you for bringing this up. Is if you get a second garnishment for someone, they often ask, "Hey, if there's another one in play already, then we will be mindful of that. We will give grace to that and wait until that's
Yes.
done."
Oh,
Right?
yes.
But
Yes.
some of them I've also read is we're only going to give grace to XYZ garnishment in front of us. If it's
Yes.
not this, then you need to add this to it.
Yes. Yes.
Now they
Some of
got
them
two
might,
garnishments,
yes.
right?
Some of them, yes. To your point, some of them may say, okay, hey, how much disposable earnings do they have
Mm-hmm.
left remaining? Do they have
Mm-hmm.
anything else we can tap into?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so set us up. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
take this much of what they
Yep.
have remaining,
Yep.
right?
That's right. That's right. So this is where, again, being mindful of the intention of these codes. If you need a lot, you create a lot. If you don't need a
Yes.
lot, don't do a lot, right?
Yes.
You build them according to your company's needs and
Yes.
reporting. You have to think with the end in mind with
Yes.
coding, right?
Yeah.
What is my end user gonna need this for? What are my customers gonna need this for? Then I
Yes.
can, right? Something I wanted to add to it about this stuff too is some good systems will alert you when you're trying to do a transaction
Yes.
that is off. Meaning, let's say you're trying to turn something around, but you haven't paid into it all year long or all quarter. As a good one is going to tell you because it's 941s, it's
Mhm.
going to say, hey, you didn't pay anything to this earn code this quarter. Why are you trying to make a negative balance on it? And it's
Yeah.
going to say this is wrong, and that's correct. So you
Yes.
either got the code wrong or you need to do it in another quarter. But some systems, point is, some systems will pay it out. What's up, Walt?
If if a code is inactivated and you're trying to refund it in the system, some
Yep.
systems will alert you on that too. This code is not
Yes.
active for you to
Yes.
refund.
Yep.
So that's
That's
another
a
good
those.
point.
Yes, and then that And we have another show on systems and how to pick systems and how to break it down. And I just love how it all ties in. And again, we can
Yeah.
keep talking about it. It's so fun. But that it also lends to the sophistication of the system, right? Is it something that you just buy off the shelf and you're restricted on how you set it up? Is it a very robust enterprise system where you can customize down to the T, or is it something in between? So that those basically the three buckets where these systems fall into. And if you're looking for a new system and all of these things are playing in, which it should, you have to think about this in advance. And
Yep.
why I
Yep.
hesitated is because if you're looking for a new system, you need to go get Anita Latink's book on how to pick your next payroll. And it also
How to
applies to
select your next payroll.
how to
Yes.
select your next payroll. It also applies to HCM, right? It
Yeah.
says payroll, but you can apply the same
Same logic.
things, same logic to picking an HCM. And not only that, if you really want to learn how to do payroll well and you're a little off and maybe you're new or you want to refocus yourself and say, am I doing this right? You
Yep.
you can one, check out the news pod because we just dropped some advice on how to make your payroll more efficient. But also two, read Anita Latink's book about how to select your next payroll because
Yeah.
it's also, and I told her this. We were lucky enough to have her on the show. Check
Yeah.
that episode out. And I told her, I was like, it really. I told her, hey, it's also how to learn how to do payroll. And she's like, oh, I should
Yeah.
change the title. And I was like, you really should.
Yeah.
She should add it to the under the title somewhere, and also how to do it right. But until she
Yeah.
does, I'm glad to advocate for it and tell you that because it helped
Read the
me.
book.
It helped me
Read the book.
refocus. Yeah, wow, this is how you do payroll.
Yep.
So yeah, folks.
I'm good, man. Do you have anything else?
Nah, man. In conclusion, setting up and using these correct pay, deduction, and memo and accumulator codes contributes to overall efficiency and effectiveness at your organization. This is why we. This is that was the whole point of this, right? You want to do it right, be intentional, transparent, deliver a good product.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. All right.
Good stuff, bro.
Good
Yeah,
stuff,
man.
man.
Really
All
good
right,
stuff.
everybody. Check in. Exciting things are coming. Stay
Yes.
tuned. We're excited. We're your hosts, Brian with the most, and Walter Duncan.
Thank you, sir. Have a
Hit
good
us up.
one.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Oh, so glad we're recording because if not, that would have been a doozy.
Yes.
We forgot recording the other day. Missing
Yes.
the miss, but thank God it was like a little quick show.
Yeah.
It was our new news pod, so go check that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, man, oh my goodness. All right, bye, folks.
Later, folks. Thank you for tuning in to It's About Payroll. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep going.